Welcome to Life Stories, where one woman vanished before dawn not to escape her life, but to reclaim it. Imagine being handed a rent bill for the privilege of staying invisible in your own family, while your golden boy brother gets a brand new car for graduating college. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about what happens when the daughter everyone underestimated decides to stop surviving and starts fighting back. It's raw. It's emotional. And at the heart of it is a secret so deeply buried, it could shatter everything her family pretended to be. Stay with us because by the end of the story, you may just question what love, loyalty, and family really mean. Now let's begin. I left home at 4:11 a.m. on a Tuesday with nothing but a duffel bag and 22 years of silence that had finally reached its breaking point. The street outside the Weston house was still soaked in shadows, the kind that stretched and lingered like unspoken things. Inside, my parents were asleep in their separate rooms, my father Everett likely dreaming of control and spreadsheets, my mother Caroline curled into herself like a paper-thin promise. Mason's room, with its navy blue walls and championship banners, was quiet too. He'd probably fallen asleep basking in the glow of his new car parked in the driveway, a graduation gift, complete with a pearl-white paint job and leather seats. Meanwhile, my gift for surviving the same number of years under the same roof. An invoice. $800 a month in rent just to continue existing in a house that had never truly been mine. No one stopped me. No one even stirred. That was the thing about being invisible, you could disappear, and it wouldn't disrupt the scenery. I didn't leave a goodbye note. I left a receipt. It was itemized, everything they'd taken from me. Every time I'd covered for Mason's mistakes. Every holiday I was talked over. Every birthday I spent cleaning the kitchen while they toasted his potential. I wrote it not with spite, but with precision. Like a business memo from a ghost. My name is Brielle Weston, and I was 22 years old when I decided to become the main character of my own story because no one else had ever bothered to cast me in theirs. The storm didn't start with the rent demand. That was just the thunderclap. The real storm had been gathering in the corners of our family photo albums for years, between Mason's perfect smile and my place just slightly out of frame. You see, in the Weston house, we didn't speak in truths, we traded in performances. My father, a respected corporate advisor, spoke in suggestions that carried the weight of law. My mother, a former debutante turned designer charity board member, had a talent for saying everything while revealing absolutely nothing. And Mason? Mason was the chosen one. The Weston legacy. I was 14 the first time I realized that I existed only in the negative space of his spotlight. Mason had taken Dad's Tesla out for a joyride, crashed it into a neighbor's fence, and I, doing my homework like always, was blamed for not stopping him. You knew, didn't you? Dad had asked, cool and cutting. You're always watching. You should have said something. Watching. That's what I did best. I watched Mason get scholarships and summer internships. I watched my parents lie to our neighbors, telling them I was taking time to find myself while I worked 2 jobs and took online business courses in secret. I watched the good china come out only twice a year, Christmas and bad news, and the night I decided to leave, my mother had asked me to set the table with it. Use the Wedgwood, she said, already applying her lipstick in the mirror. Tonight's special. That's when I knew. They waited until after dessert to deliver the blow. Mason, flush with post-grad glow, was handed the keys to a brand new car. I offered a polite congratulations, even meant it. Some small part of me would always remember the kid who used to build Lego cities with me and cry when his ice cream fell. But then my father turned to me with the calm certainty of a man who'd long stopped seeing me as a person. And Brielle, he said, lifting his wineglass, your mother and I have decided it's time you started contributing more. Rent begins next Sunday. $800 a month. I thought it was a joke. Then I looked at my mother. She was folding her napkin, eyes down, mouth tight. And Mason? He didn't look surprised. Not even a little. He wouldn't meet my gaze. That night, I washed the good china by hand, each plate a small act of farewell. My family laughed in the next room, the sound soft and cruel. In that moment, a quiet voice inside me whispered, "You don't have to live like this." And for the first time, I listened. I left before sunrise. I bought a bus ticket to Cedar Glen, a quiet artsy college town my grandmother once called home. There was only one person I could trust: Lila Monroe, my godmother and my late grandmother's closest friend. A retired journalist with silver hair and sharp eyes, Lila had always been a mystery wrapped in intellect. When my father found ways to silence everyone else, she was the one voice he couldn't control. I hadn't spoken to her in over a decade. But she was waiting at the station when I arrived. "You look like hell," she said, arms crossed, no judgment in her voice. "Come on. Let's get you fed." Lila's home was unlike anything I'd ever known. Messy in the way that felt lived in. Books stacked everywhere. Mismatched coffee mugs. Art that didn't match but belonged. I didn't have to pretend to be okay. She didn't ask why I came. She just gave me tea, handed me a quilt, and let me sleep for 12 hours. It was the first time I'd felt safe in years. 3 days later, I opened the leather-bound journals I had taken from my grandmother's attic. Everyone believed they had been lost after Eleanor Weston died. My father searched for them, claiming they held important family history to pass to Mason. But I had found them first. I'd hidden them, even from myself, afraid of what they might reveal. Now I was ready. Inside the first journal, tucked between a grocery list and a poem about rain, was a legal document. A trust. Dated 3 years ago. Signed and sealed. Designating me, Brielle Rose Weston, as the sole beneficiary. I blinked. I read it again. It was real. And I had never seen a dime of it. My heart pounded as I flipped to the next page and stopped cold. There, in neat cursive, my grandmother had written, "If Everett tries to take this from you, find Lila. She knows everything." I looked up. Lila was standing in the doorway, watching me with a storm in her eyes. "I was wondering when you'd find that," she said softly. "There's more, Brielle. Much more. Have you ever discovered something about your family that changed the way you saw your entire childhood? Can love survive when it's built on lies and silence?" Because what I found next didn't just change my life, it rewrote everything I thought I knew about who I was. And about what my brother had done. The storm broke the moment Lila opened the second journal. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she flipped through the brittle pages slowly, fingers trailing the margins as if touching the past might change its shape. I watched her face shift: composure first, then disbelief, then something closer to grief. When she finally looked up at me, her voice was quiet but cut through the air like glass. "Your grandmother didn't just leave you a trust, Brielle. She left you evidence." I leaned forward, heart hammering. "Evidence of what?" Lila held up a thin, yellowing envelope. "Your father's theft. Forged documents. Altered legal forms. Bank transfers that went to accounts in Mason's name. Eleanor kept copies of everything." I stared at the envelope, my mind racing. All those nights I'd thought I was just unlucky, just not working hard enough. All those hours I'd spent calculating and recalculating bills, ashamed of how little I had. All the while, money with my name on it, money meant for my education, my future, was padding someone else's life. "Mason knew," Lila said. "He may not have initiated it, but he benefited. And from what I can see here, Your father made him complicit. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a copy of a tuition transfer form, my name in the header, my forged signature at the bottom, authorizing the full balance of my college fund to be redirected to Mason-Weston, State University of Ohio. I had never signed that paper. But the signature was close. Too close. And then I remembered. One summer, when we were kids, Mason had spent a whole week copying my handwriting. It was a joke, back then. He used to forge fake hall passes in my name, laughing when I'd get called to the principal's office for something I hadn't done. He thought it was funny. My breath caught in my throat. All these years later, he'd done it again. Why would Dad do this? I whispered. Because control wasn't enough, Lila said. He needed your obedience, your silence. The best way to ensure it? Make you dependent. Keep you scrambling. Make you believe your failures were your fault. I was silent for a long moment, staring at my hands like they belonged to someone else. A part of me had always known my father didn't love me the way he loved Mason. But this wasn't just favoritism. This was strategy. Theft. Manipulation. And Mason, who used to protect me from bullies, who used to braid my hair when Mom was too busy, he had let it happen. Later that night, I stood outside under the cold porch light, the journal clutched to my chest like a shield. The stars above Cedar Glen were brilliant and indifferent. Somewhere behind those stars, I imagined the girl I could have been, the version of me who had the trust fund, who wasn't worn thin by constant struggle, who had believed she mattered. And then I heard my phone buzz in my pocket. An unknown number. I answered it, heart in my throat. Brielle. The voice on the other end was low, raw. It's Mason. I froze. How did you get this number? Mom gave it to me. She's worried. Says you are not answering anyone. There was a beat of silence. I could hear traffic in the background. Then Mason spoke again, softer this time. Did you find it? The trust. My blood ran cold. You knew. I didn't, not everything, he said quickly. Dad made it sound like you didn't want the money. That you were too overwhelmed to handle it. He said I'd use it better. That it was better for the family. I closed my eyes. The word better hit like a slap. Better for the family, as if I had been born to sacrifice my dreams on the altar of someone else's potential. I wanted to tell you, Mason added, voice breaking. I was going to, after graduation. But then the car, and the job offer, and it just kept getting harder to admit. That's convenient, I said coldly. Every lie gets easier the longer you live inside it. He was quiet for a long time. I'm sorry, he said finally. I was scared. I didn't know how to make it right. You don't, I replied. Not with words. Then I hung up. Back inside, Lila was waiting for me with a fresh pot of coffee and a stack of legal files she'd pulled from her attic. She didn't say anything when she saw my face. She just poured me a cup and handed me a pen. You have a decision to make, she said gently. You can let this go. Or you can fight. But if you choose to fight, you'll need to be ready. This won't just be about money. It'll be about your name. Your truth. And tearing down the lie your father spent 20 years building. I didn't answer immediately. I traced the rim of the mug, steam rising between my fingers like breath from a sleeping dragon. Somewhere inside me, the version of Brielle who had washed dishes in silence and smiled through bitterness stirred awake. I'll fight, I said. And this time, they're going to hear me. What would you do if your own family stole your future and called it love? Could you forgive the brother who watched it happen and said nothing? Because the truth I was about to uncover next would burn through everything I thought I knew about loyalty, justice, and what it really means to come home. 3 weeks after I made the decision to fight, I returned to the Weston house not as the dutiful daughter, but as the woman they never saw coming. I didn't go alone. Julian Rhodes, my attorney, parked across the street with a briefcase full of legal documents and calm fire in his eyes. Lila sat beside me in the passenger seat, quiet but steady, a silent reminder that sometimes the fiercest allies wear silver hair and carry pain like armor. The house looked different. Smaller. The grass hadn't been cut. Weeds curled up the sides of the porch like vines reclaiming a lie. I hadn't been back since the night I vanished. And yet, nothing surprised me, not even the emptiness of it. The Weston house had always been an echo chamber, built on performance and pretense. Only now, the masks were slipping. My father answered the door. He didn't look like the man who used to tower over me in the kitchen, lecturing about responsibility while holding a glass of Pinot. He looked older. Grayer. As if life had finally begun collecting interest on all the debt he'd buried beneath that roof. "Well," he said, "if it isn't the runaway." I met his gaze, unflinching. "If I'm a runaway, it's because you made home unlivable." He didn't move aside, so Julian stepped forward and handed him a sealed envelope. "You've been served, Mr. Weston. The trust will be audited. You're being investigated for financial fraud, misappropriation of inheritance funds, and abuse of power of attorney." My father's jaw tightened. For a moment, I saw the flicker of panic beneath the polished veneer. But then he smiled. "Do you really think anyone will care?" he asked me. "This little rebellion of yours. The world doesn't reward victims, Brielle. It rewards winners. People like me." "No," I said quietly. "It rewards people who survive you and speak." He didn't answer. He turned and walked inside without a word, the envelope still unopened in his hand. Julian followed. So did I. We sat in the living room where I'd once braided friendship bracelets and overheard Mason get praised for passing pre-calc. Now, that same room smelled like dust and endings. Julian spoke calmly, explaining the process. My father barely responded, except to say, "I have lawyers, and this will blow over." It wouldn't. Not this time. Because I wasn't leaving it in the dark anymore. 2 days later, Mason called again. "This time," I answered. "I heard about the case," he said. "Dad's losing his mind. Says you're trying to destroy the family." I laughed, bitter and tired. "He destroyed it himself. I'm just turning on the lights. I want to help." "You had the chance," I said. "You chose silence." He didn't argue. Just let the silence between us settle like dust. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not because I got caught. Not even because I'm scared. But because I see it now. I see what he did to us. To you. It wasn't enough. But it was something." A week later, Julian called. "We've reached a settlement. He'll return the trust, pay damages, and issue a written admission of fault. If he refuses, we go to court, and he risks criminal charges." I sat on the edge of the bookstore's front window, the place that had become more home to me than anywhere else. Rain tapped softly against the glass. "Let's take it," I said. "I'm not here to ruin him. I'm here to reclaim me." 2 months passed. I used the trust money to start something bigger, Second Light, a nonprofit for young adults surviving financial abuse and manipulation. Lila helped build it. Julian offered legal support. Margaret, from the bookstore, organized volunteers. We found others like me. So many others. Their stories were different, but the grief was the same. And my mother? Caroline Weston left my father the week the settlement was signed. She moved into an apartment near her sister, got a job at a local art gallery, and started therapy. For the first time in my life, she began showing up not as someone's wife, but as herself. Our relationship was fragile, but it was real. Mason enrolled in a vocational carpentry program. He sent me an envelope every month with a small check and a handwritten note. "This is for you," he wrote. "And this time, I mean it." I never cashed the checks, but I kept the notes. One quiet morning, I returned to the graveyard on the hill just outside Cedar Glen. The wind was soft, and the trees swayed like they knew what I was about to do. I knelt at Eleanor Weston's grave, a bundle of her letters in my hands. "You saved me," I whispered. "Even when you were gone. You left me a roadmap out of the lie. You gave me a voice. And I'm using it." I laid the letters down, weighted by a smooth stone I'd carved with a single word: seen. Months later, the Weston house sold. But it didn't go to another family. With my mother's encouragement and her part of the divorce settlement, I purchased it and donated the deed to a local women's shelter. Today, it's called the Eleanor House, a space for women rebuilding their lives after financial or emotional abuse. We added a playground in the backyard, painted the walls soft yellow, replaced the silence with laughter. I walk by sometimes. The windows are always open now. As for me, I live in a small house a few blocks from the bookstore. I drink coffee on the front steps with Lila, edit grant proposals for Second Light, and sometimes catch myself smiling at nothing in particular. And I write. My memoir, The Girl Who Disappeared, was published a year after I left home. It became a bestseller, not because I was extraordinary, but because so many people knew what it meant to be unseen, to be stolen from, to be told you were too much or not enough. Elijah, the man I met at the bookstore, still sits beside me when I write. A quiet, steady presence who never asks me to be smaller than I am. I told him everything, and he stayed. That was the twist I didn't expect. That after all the unraveling there would still be something to build. That after losing everything I thought I needed, I'd find something better. Myself. What part of this story stayed with you the most and why? Comment 100 if the story moved you. Tell us where you're watching from today. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching Life Stories.